The story of ancient things, or Kojiki, and the Nihon Shoki were the primary sources for Japanese or Shinto mythology. These collections of ancient materials are the best records of the mythological age that began with events surrounding the first gods. The origin of the world, the creation of Japan, and the heavenly origin of Japanese emperors. But more importantly, the genesis of the divine couple, Izanagi and Izanami. At the beginning of time, the world existed as a chaotic collection of gases. This matter was gradually overcome by the separation of heaven and earth. The first parents were created from this infinite void, then several gods appeared. The first god was Ameno Manaka Nushimikoto, and later was joined by his two brothers, Takami Musubi and Kami Musubi. These gods didn't have shape nor bodies, they were invisible. At the same time, a bud appeared in the floating sea that made up the earth, and two more gods sprang from it. Altogether, these first gods were the 5 distinguished heavenly deities, or sky kami, named KOTOAMATSUKAMI. Later on, 7 generations of gods came to being, including 5 that were matched in pairs. The youngest of these gods were Izanagi no Makoto, he who invites, and Izanami no Makoto, she who invites. Izanagi was the passive principle, and Izanami was the active principle, both representing the yin and the yang, the male and female principles, and they are the ancestors of all creation. This pair of gods were companion and complementary deities who belonged together even though they were total different gods. Izanagi and Izanami were brother and sister, then husband and wife. They were the primordial gods existing before the world. When the time came for Izanagi and Izanami to create the earth, they stood on the floating bridge of heaven, Amano Yukihashi, and right over there, they dived into the ocean a special spear made of jewels, Ameno Nuhoko. When they drew it back, the water drop that fell from the spear onto the ocean formed the first land, which was the island of Inoguroshima. They then stuck the spear into the land, forming the heavenly pillar. Later, the two gods realized that their bodies were not the same. Izanami thought that part of her had not been finished, while Izanagi thought he had been given too much. They decided to bring these incomplete parts together, so that Izanami would give birth to more islands. She agreed, and they circled the heavenly pillar as a wedding ceremony. After performing the ritual, they came together as husband and wife and had a child. Their son, however, was deformed. He was called Hirako. The leech child was born. The child's deformity led them realizing that they had wrongly performed their ritual, because Izanami spoke first, which shouldn't have been the case because that was Izanagi's duty. The couple then abandoned their first child to the sea, and repeated the wedding ritual, this time with Izanagi talking first. With the ritual done properly, Izanami gave birth to all the 8 islands of Japan, as well as the land of Awagi. Next they created a wide variety of kami, such as the deity spirits of the seasons, the gods of the seas, rivers, winds, trees, mountains, vegetation, and so on. But tragedy followed when she gave birth to Kagutsushi, the god of fire. His flames burned her so badly that she died, and more gods yet sprang from the dead deity. In total rage, Izanagi chopped off Kagutsushi into pieces, and his blood produced even more gods, while the pieces of his body created the 8 great volcanoes of Japan. But his wife had gone to Yomi no Kuni, the land of the dead according to Shinto mythology. For Izanagi, killing Kagutsushi, the god of fire, was not enough to quench his grief, so he decided to follow Izanami to Yomi. Izanagi would find her, and bring her back as in the Greek mythology of Orpheus. But when he arrived to the underworld, Izanagi discovered that Izanami has already tasted the food of the dead. Like Persephone in the Greek underworld, she had already eaten the fruit belonging to the underworld, and therefore she would not and could not return with her husband to the living world. But after begging for his wife to return, Izanagi was given a condition. Izanami was allowed to return if Izanagi wouldn't look at her until she was ready to leave the underworld. Izanagi promised not to lay his eyes upon Izanami until then, and she disappeared. Unfortunately, Izanagi lost his patience. He couldn't wait any longer and broke his promise by walking in on Izanami while she was getting ready. Lighting up his comb as a candle, he saw worms crawling through his wife's rotting corpse, and squirming maggots which turned into 8 thunder gods. In panic, Izanagi ran away. Angered that he would not stay by her side anymore, Izanami sent the 8 thunders and Yomotsushi Kome, demon of the underworld, after her former husband with the instruction to bring him back. Izanami felt insulted and chased Izanagi to the very gates of the underworld. But Izanagi was able to escape in time, and rolled a giant boulder across the entrance of Yomi, blocking Izanami and the other demons inside. Trapped in the underworld, Izanami shouted through the rock that she would take revenge for her humiliation by killing 1,000 people every day. Izanagi promised to replace them by 1,500 people per day, therefore creating the cycle of life. The Izanami-Izanagi cycle then begun. Meanwhile, Izanami remained in the underworld creating more deities, and eventually became the queen of Yomi. Upon his return to the world, and having wrongly visited the underworld, Izanagi realized that he was impure and had to cleanse himself. So he washed his body in the sacred waters of a river, and many more gods were produced from the sweat of his skin and clothes. As he washed his left eye, the sun goddess Amaterasu was born. From his right eye came the moon god, Tsukuyomi. And finally from his nose came the brave, swift, and impetuous male god, Susanoo. As a matter of fact, this purification ritual is named Misogi or Hara-e in Japanese Shinto practices, which consists of washing the entire body, in order to get rid of the sins, bad luck and other type of misfortune. Izanagi thereafter divided his kingdom between his children and retired in heaven. Amaterasu would rule over the heaven. The moon god ruled over the night, and was made Amaterasu's husband and co-ruler. While Susanoo would rule over the seas. But, not attending properly to his duties, and always whining about going to see his mother in the underworld, Susanoo would soon be banished from heaven by his father. In the story, the two gods discovered that in order to have a child born properly, the man must speak first during courtship. This may tell us something about the origin of courtship customs at the time the myth was created. The mythology of gods such as Izanagi and Izanami belongs to the Shinto religion, which is known as Kami no Michi, the way of the god. It's good to understand that the word kami is often translated as soul, spirit and deity, and it's the key to the Shinto religion. The major kami are the gods, such as Izanagi and Izanami, but every living thing has a kami. In this way, Shintoism combines the worship of the sacred powers of nature, and the might of human ancestors as well. That's it for the story. If you've enjoyed the video, consider leaving a thumbs up, a comment and share the video. And don't forget to subscribe as well if you haven't already, as it helps me to keep on putting in content for you guys to enjoy. And turn on the bell so you won't miss anything. And as always, stay curious.